So always make sure that you have good subcontractors. I tell people that all the time. It's super important. You know, the guy that does my foundations he's been doing it for 15 years with me. We've been working together for 15 years now. So it's simple. I give him the plans, and he calls me when it's done.
Don't gotta think about it.
You know what I'm saying? There's not a whole lot of figuring out at this point. 11 of the properties that I owned had been sold off to other investors. So I was stuck with 7 of them, right? I'm not just bringing you one deal. You know, I'm showing you a track record. I built 30 houses last year. Like, you want that business or not? And everybody can win. Everybody can win in real estate if it's done right. Like, you know, I mean, just do good, clean, honest business and everybody can win, from the investor, from your electrician, you know, your foundation guys. Everybody that's involved in the process can win, earn money, and move on to the next thing, as long as it's done honestly and done the right way. Not let the money get ahead of the work. It should never happen. Don't let your money get ahead of the work.
So tonight, we're gonna be talking about how to get into new construction properties, okay? How many builders, any other builders in the building? Anybody doing real estate right now already? Okay, cool. People already doing deals. Good, good, good. Raise your hand if you've been in the business for over 10 years. Okay, we've got a few of you guys. So we got a few veterans in here. So we're gonna go high, we'll zoom out to see Julian's business, and then we'll zoom in to kind of see some of the moving parts and the intricacies to make sure we understand behind the scenes type stuff.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk, before we get into the interview, I wanted to just talk very briefly to you guys, as I was discussing earlier with Ron. I don't think we have a money problem. I don't think our community has a money problem regarding finding capital, Julius, to do deals. I wanted to ask you, we're gonna get into the new construction stuff,
Sure.
but from my perspective, we have a strategy issue, and it's not necessarily from what I found, the money flows to the dudes that are doing the deals. Could you talk about that some?
Sure. That's a fact. I mean, you know, I think a lot of times people start out in this business thinking that they have to have, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars in their personal bank accounts to be able to get activated in, you know, renovations. Most people don't start out in new construction. They kind of hit the ground running with the harder projects, I like to call them. Yeah, renovations. And so,
Right now,
yeah, but I mean, I think it takes a lot of research. You know, you really have to just kind of get into the weeds, talk to people like Kris and I who are doing this every day, and just find out where those resources are, you know, as far as funding. There are hard money lenders. A lot of people start out in that direction. I'm sure we'll probably talk a little bit more about that. You know, going to and get a traditional loan from a bank for a construction loan is always an option. Of course, you have to jump through a few more hoops, as I like to say, or a lot more red tape, but it's possible, you know. So there's a lot of different options. You just kind of have to do your research, find out what works for you and the project that you're working on, and just kind of go from there. And then always look to get a little advice from guys that have been doing it for a long time.
What do you say, Jay, to people that think that they have? Because I wish I had a 25 cent every time I hear someone say, if I just had the money. If I just had the money, then I would do this. If I just had the money, I would do that.
Yeah.
What do you say?
Well, you'll never have the money, right? Like you'll never be enough. There's always something that's going to come up that's going to, you know, kind of set that whole idea back. So don't wait for that. You know, reach out to people like ourselves who've been doing this for a while, who can kind of guide you to resources. You know, again, I kind of touch on the hard money lending situations because that's how I started. You know, and it's not something that you have to lean on forever. But it does cut down on a lot of red tape. It allows you to get the process moving a bit faster. Most hard money lenders will require that you have what we all affectionately know as skin in the game. They want you to have some type of resources to put towards the project because it gives them a sense of security about the money that they're lending you. But usually those loans are based off of the project. It generally has nothing to do with your personal credit, things like that. You know, it's the project, right? So. That's a good option to start with. You know, you can kind of get things going, get a few projects under your belt, put some money aside, put yourself in a position to get a traditional loan from a bank eventually, because the interest rates will be lower and so forth.
I want to talk about some of that later as we get to your story. So, 6:45, we might as well get into it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. I've got Julius Hayes. I met this gentleman probably a few years back, introduced him from Joppo. If you don't mind, clap it up for Joppo. This is his here, the juice bar. We wouldn't be able to be here if it wasn't for Joppo. So please support the bar here. You got food, juice bar, refreshments, all type of stuff, and the stuff is phenomenal. They make all the stuff from scratch. You got smoothies too, Jody? Good. So that's the guy, and Theo take care of you. I met Julius through Joppo, y'all. So I wanted to just touch on your environment. So hanging around this guy here, this dude is just connected with so many people. He's the reason that, anybody seen the Damon Dash interview? So he's the reason that I was able to actually get in touch with Dame. This dude right here is seriously connected, y'all. He's real low key, right? So once again, a boss. We talked about, you talk about a boss. So this guy here, somebody to know, somebody that could probably plug you in with different things, and no doubt you can share some stuff with him too. So thank you, brother.
Appreciate you, brother.
So we started doing renovations in 2004, guys. I've been in the business, right? I'm an old head now. So I remember coming to these things back when I was in 2004. And I never would have thought I would be the one on stage helping the community do this stuff. So now we have the opportunity to share these stories and introduce the people that have an impact on my life. Because when I was coming up, Lonnie Scruggs was my mentor. Anybody heard of Lonnie Scruggs? One guy, okay, a couple guys, okay. Lonnie Scruggs, I actually used to eat lunch with the dude all the time. Go to lunch with him, man. He's multi-millionaire. He owns several mobile home parks. And hanging out with Lonnie, he'd written all these books, and I'm thinking to myself, I would never do this. Who writes books? I mean, who would do that, right? So now I'm looking back, I thank God that it had an opportunity to hang out with guys like that, which tonight, you guys get to, everybody gets to meet other entrepreneurs in the building that hopefully will change your life too. Okay, thank you so much for coming. So Julius Hayes is a builder. I wanted him to share his story. I've been trying to track him down. He's extremely busy. Every time I call him, I've never got you on the phone, by the way.
He can get me anytime.
Always got to get a call back. This dude is so busy. He's got so many projects going on. I drove to another city in Suffolk to see him at a project 2 weeks ago. Several bills going on. And when you get a chance to narrow down a guy like this, you try to extract as much value out of him when you can. And obviously I want to give him some value too. So I asked him to join us tonight to kind of share with him his roadmap to success and becoming a builder, developer, Class A, investor, and tell us his story. So hopefully you can relate to some of that and possibly plug in some of the pieces of the puzzle to your life. Is that okay, y'all? I don't hear y'all. Y'all quiet. All right. That's right. So give me an opportunity. Warm welcome to my friend, investor, developer. Please give a warm round of applause for Julius Hayes.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's an absolute honor to be sitting here with Kris. Kris is he's given me a lot this evening, and I really do appreciate that, brother. But I'm always learning more and more about this business every day. There's always something that comes about that, or someone that comes about that has knowledge in different areas, a lot more experience in certain things that they bring to your life, and Kris has been one of those people to me. I wouldn't be sitting here doing this had it not been for him. So I thank you for that, brother. I really do, man. I appreciate the opportunity. And so let's get into it, man. Real estate for me was not something that I started out doing, right? I used to work on airplanes.
Let's talk about that. How did you? I want to know, how did you segue from whatever you were doing into? Did you start building, or you were doing renovations first?
No, we started with renovations.
Talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, unfortunately, my introduction into this business was a harsh one, right? I lost over $2 million in real estate, in property and cash that I had invested in a particular company that I was dealing with back in the days. I saw real estate back then, especially. This was mid '90s. You know, I mean, I could say my name and get a loan for, for a property. It was extremely easy. Things were flowing very well from what I thought. Unfortunately, again, I'll try to make this story a little bit short, but I got involved with a company. Somebody's phone is on. I got involved with a company who was considered a property management company. At the height of the company's business, they owned over 400 houses in Hampton Roads. There wasn't a neighborhood that you could go into that we didn't have a hand in, right? Or a house in.
What year was this?
This was 2004, 2005. So everything was looking great. I had 20 rental properties. I was still fairly young. I didn't have as much gray hair on my face as I do now. But I thought I was shooting for the stars, right? Unfortunately, some of the people who were involved in the real estate investment group, who were a lot smarter about real estate than I was at the time, understood that the company was not providing the returns to the investors like they were supposed to. Basically, they were using us as straw buyers, right?
Explain to my roundup homies what, if people don't know what a straw buyer is.
Sure.
Right?
Sure, if you're not familiar with the term, a straw buyer is basically somebody, they use, let's say for instance, I'll use my daughter for example, but I bring her in and say, listen, I got a property over here on 29th Street, I want you to buy it, we think it's gonna be a pretty good deal. You utilize your credit to purchase the property, right? And then with the promise of getting it fixed up, getting it rent ready. At the time, we were big in Section 8, so it was gonna be ready for Section 8 rental. And and this grand idea that you own a property now, right? 6 months now. Back then, equity built up in properties very quickly. I mean, you could purchase a property today and 6 months later flip it and make $50,000. In some cases $100,000. I mean, it was crazy back then.
Kind of like 2021 to 22, 23.
Sure. Yeah. Exactly. It was crazy. So So the company understood that, and that's what they were doing. So 6 months later to a year later, they would take the property and sell it for my daughter to you, Lance, and they'd sell that property to you. Now, when they did that, they would give you dividends, right? Give you $5,000, give you $5,000, and the rest of the money that came from the closing was supposed to go back into the property to get it rent ready, fixed up, looking beautiful, back on the market. Well, that's how they were living the extravagant lifestyle they were living, and enticed myself and others with trips abroad and flights on private jets and going golfing in Spain and all these great things that me as a young man, I'm like, I'm going golfing in Spain, like on a private jet. This is, a dream come true, right? This kid from Queens that would have never thought, right? Anyway, to try to make this story a little bit shorter, again, someone who's a lot smarter about the real estate business at the time understood that the company was not doing what they were supposed to be doing with these funds. So they forced the company into a federal bankruptcy. This was in the newspaper for months. I mean, like every day you saw the owners of the company on the news, and it was a huge nightmare, right? At the time, fortunately for me, I had 11 of the properties that I owned had been sold off to other investors. So I was stuck with 7 of them, right? Again, I was really young in the business. I was a nightclub manager. I used to do a lot of other stuff around here.
Were you cash flowing?
Yeah.
Julius? Okay.
Yeah, it was all, cash flow for me. So, I mean, it was, so I still had 7 properties left when the company went into the bankruptcy, federal bankruptcy. And I didn't really know what to do with them. I didn't have a Kris Haskins around to show me, say, hey, look, man, you can salvage this. Let me show you how. I just panicked. So I wound up losing all of these properties to the bank. I mean, it forced. Oh, yeah.
Talk about if you were cash flowing. If you were cash flowing on the properties, how would you lose them?
So, well, no, I'm sorry.
You were not cash flowing.
No, the banks, these particular properties were not cash. I had mortgages on them.
I'm saying, but you were cash flowing though. I mean, your rent was more than the.
No, there was nothing. There was no rent. The properties were sitting empty. Right. That's what one of the investors came to understand that the properties were not getting fixed up and they were not, getting returns on their investment. There was no money being made. They were just absorbing the money from the sales, from me to you and from you to him, and you know what I mean. So
they weren't rental property.
No.
I'm sorry. I thought they were.
Maybe I'll share this information with you guys. But the company was called CM Development.
CM. I was going to ask you that.
You ever Google it? CM Development. I'm not.
Anybody remember CM?
A lot of y'all look too young to probably remember CM Development, but
I remember the news every day.
Yeah, it was in the news every day. I mean, it was, these were people who I considered friends, and I was supposed to get married that year. I couldn't get my wife the wedding we were supposed to have. I lost everything.
Oh Lord!
Credit went from 780 to 5 something. I was like, it was ridiculous, and I'm laughing about it now because thank God I was able to get past that point in my life. But it was a very, very difficult time, which, if you fast forward a little bit to present day, it's part of the reason why I'm sitting here now. There's no reason why any one of you in this audience should ever have to go through that, because I already did it, right? So I can tell you how to avoid those things. I can show you where the potholes are in the road so that you don't run into them. You know what I'm saying? Kris can do that. And that's been our mission, you know what I'm saying, to educate people in real estate so that you can be better at it, even than we were, So
in this hole, we got 7 vacant properties on your credit.
Yep.
What do you do now? You let them go to the bank?
So they went through the bank. The bank absorbed the properties. They took them back. It was a huge downfall for me, at that time. I didn't really understand how to recover from it, other than to kind of let the banks take them and just try to move forward from it. But in all of this happening, when it did, it opened my eyes to the fact that, okay, so some of these other investors that were involved in all of this, they started to understand, well, they could salvage their properties, but they had nobody that could work on them. They had nobody that knew how to fix them up. So they called me for whatever reason.
At this time.
At this time, right. They called me and said, Julius, well, look, man, I got, 30 properties, man. I don't know what I'm going to do with them. I got to figure out how to get these things fixed up. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, okay.
So these are 30 houses just like yours?
Yeah, 30 houses just like mine, right? But mine had already been, wrapped up, and I didn't know what to do with them until the light bulb came on. By then it was too late for me, but these other investors were able to hold on to them long enough until Julius got smart enough and said, well, wait a minute, maybe there's something I could do to help them out, right? Okay, well, what's going on with the property? What do you need? Well, I need a new roof on this one. Okay, wait a minute. I know a couple of roofers. let me get my roofers and we'll go over there and give you an estimate to do it. And I kind of learned the business that way. I started getting deeper and deeper into the intricacies of actually fixing a property up from scratch. I was a little bit nervous about doing it and tepid because I really didn't know at first. But fortunately, I was able to weed through all of the subcontractors at the time who said they could do this and who said they could do that, and they'd be there Tuesday and they didn't show up until next Wednesday and all that kind of stuff, right? I'm sure some of you have experienced that,
Nah, every contractor does what they say they're going to do for y'all, right? They show up on time and they leave late.
That's a tough thing to deal with, man. But fortunately, I was able to kind of make my way through that whole mess, and eventually, it led me to understand. Well, look, man, why don't you, let's go after getting a license to do this, to do it the right way, So we got our Class C and our Class B and Class A, and from there we started just getting deeper and deeper into development properties, rehabbing properties. At the time, we weren't building houses. I had to learn that that was pretty rough, learning how to build a house from scratch, but we eventually learned that.
So you were in the business in the early 2000s, doing it the wrong way.
Yep.
You invested with some people. When you look back, what could you have done differently, Jay?
Good question. Exactly what you.
Because this is what people y'all need. This is the magic here. I mean, you don't get these stories. These are pillow talk stories.
Yeah, absolutely. It was harsh, but I mean, if I had to do it differently, I would be doing exactly what you're doing right now, getting educated in it, right? I was relying on other people
to do what?
To guide me through investing and renovating properties. And actually, at the time, when I first locked in with them, I wasn't thinking about renovating them. That was their job. I just wanted to invest in them and own them.
So
you know,
you were a straw buyer too.
yeah, I was a straw buyer.
Wow.
They used me as a straw buyer.
Y'all heard that.
Yeah,
Y'all got that.
Yeah, so definitely.
So you had to get educated, no doubt, because I'm thinking about me. 2004, it was the same way. I had zero education, but I happened to have some good guys like you showing me.
Sure.
So you saying that the people around you, or you weren't educated and they took advantage of that.
They took advantage of that, exactly. And yeah, and it was a really tough time, you know, and I felt, you know, I mean, it hurt to know that, you know, you get yourself so involved in your finances and it was, you know, so involved that it affected my family, you know, I mean, in a major way. Again, I was supposed to get married that year. My wife and I had to go to the Justice of the Peace. You know, we got married. It was a beautiful wedding. We got married on the beach, but it wasn't what we initially planned on doing, you know. So, you know, but
imagine your wife, like, babe.
Yeah. I mean, man, it was a mess, you know. And you know, again, you know, but sometimes, you know, one thing I've learned with aging and getting a little bit older and gaining a little bit more wisdom is that sometimes other people go through stuff that you can learn from. You know, I've witnessed other people.
Learn from other people.
Yeah, I've learned from other people's mistakes. Please learn from my mistake. You know, I mean, and that's one of the reasons why I'm here today to talk about that. You know, when we decided to talk about new construction, I was hoping that Kris would give me the opportunity to be able to talk to y'all about this because I don't want to hide it. You know, yeah, it was.
A lot of people don't like talking about the bad.
Yeah, you don't want to talk about how dumb you were when you made this big mistake back in the days. But
that's the most important.
Hey, look,
part.
man. You know, hopefully you can learn from it. You know what I'm saying? You know, pay attention to who you're doing business with. Make sure that everybody's staying above board. You know, checks and balances. All those things are there for a reason. You know, and that internal, you know, thing that's telling you to pay attention to this, pay attention to it. You know, that's one of the things that people tend to forget. They don't listen to their bodies, you know what I'm saying, when they're telling you to pay attention to something.
I got to stay here just for a little bit if y'all don't mind. I want to stay here at the because Julius, when I was coming up through the ranks, right, I was praying and hoping that there were men that I could give $100,000 to, 200, whatever. I could trust them with that, right? Because when you're coming up, you're like, you're scared to give somebody $500. It's like, you know, I don't even know what to. So, but now at my life, I'm like, I know personally, I know men that I can give 6 figures to, and I feel confident that they're going to do what they say they're going to do, and it's going to be okay, right? I'm thinking in my head, but coming up, I had to create those relationships, and I'm thinking about you at that time. The trust, did you have solid trust with these guys? Did they betray you, or what was it the system that betrayed them? How did all of that pop up?
It was me trusting them, and that level of trust built over a period of time. They're very smart at what they do. There's no way that you get to a company that's valued over $30 million by being a dummy, right? They're highly intelligent individuals. In real estate and in general. I mean, to this day, one of them who spent some time in federal prison came home and he has his doctorate. You know, they're not stupid people by any means. They just use their good powers. Well, they use their powers for evil.
So it was malicious.
You know,
it was malicious. It wasn't like, hey, we messed up, guys.
To be perfectly honest with you, Kris,
A little bit of both.
I think it was a little bit of both. I think that they were very ambitious in what it was that they wanted to do. And I think that at some point, those intentions were good. They actually wanted to make everybody rich, but what they didn't do is pull back from it soon enough, right? Actually, I'll say this too. They actually had an investor who was ready to come in with an influx of cash in the amount of $8 million to pull them out of this spiral that they were in. Had the investor who reported them and filed a federal bankruptcy against them had waited a week, that would have happened.
Wow.
They actually had an investor out of Florida who was willing, with an influx of cash of $8 million, he was going to infuse it into the company and get them where they needed to be. So I think that they wanted to, but it was the greed that kind of got them. You know, they wanted that $5 million house up in wherever and all that stuff. So yeah, it was a lot, but yeah.
Y'all taking notes here. This is good stuff, isn't it?
Yeah,
so you trusted these guys, man. I get concerned, Jay, as I do deals here. I know my guys. I'm like, I got it. Literally today, a guy's got 150,000 of my capital, and I'm like, sometimes it's unsecured.
Sure.
You know? Most of the time, it is secure. I would want everybody in this room. Does everybody know what having secured money is? Make sure you got some collateral back against that money. Okay, so if you can. Absolutely. Get some collateral against that. Okay, so you're pulling yourself out. I just want to get to the story, then we're going to obviously unroll it all. Yeah. So how did you bounce back? I mean, so you've lost, did you lose all those 7 too? Those 7 houses?
Yep, all 7 banks were lost.
I got foreclosure too, Jay, don't feel bad. Yeah. I'm proud of it. I'm like, look, I lost all these houses in 2008.
Yeah, that was a really rough time, 2008. A lot of people, unfortunately, this thing happened right around the same time when the market crashed. So, it happened to me by way of someone else's, mishandling of our projects and our money. But at the same time, the entire market crashed, so it was a really rough time for everybody in real estate. Some people did well in it who had been around for many years and understood the ebbs and flows of the market, when to sell and when to buy. So they made out okay. But unfortunately, a lot of people lost out in that time period.
Yeah, I'm one of them.
Yeah. But the way I spun out of it was not necessarily, it was just over time. It took time to kind of figure out what I wanted to do. I didn't know if I wanted to stay in real estate or not. I was almost ready to just say, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to get back to working on airplanes and
talk about that, Jay, because people think like I feel like even today I have to wake up in the morning and I have to convince myself like this is what we're doing today. Sure. Like it's not like I don't think there's a day that goes by. I'm like, okay, you're an investor. It's time to go get some. I mean, this is what I got to. Right. This is what we do.
Sure. Yeah, man. It was a decision I had to make. Because
decision.
Especially when my family was concerned, because my wife was like, you just lost your entire, I curse, but I won't curse. You just lost your entire butt here. You know what I'm saying? So, are you going to continue down this path in real estate?
That's a good question.
And I had to really, think about that, especially in that time. Like I said, the market crashed, everything was going crazy. But I saw an opportunity to, again, with those other investors who had, 20 properties, some had 30, some had 50,
all strong buyers.
They had a lot of properties, right? And for some reason, they all called me. I don't know what it was. I mean, to this day, I really don't even, I think it was just, God telling me that I needed to keep moving in that direction. Don't give up on it yet, right? There's another way you can get this back. So anyway, they called me and they were in need of work. At the time, I wasn't skilled, right? I'm not a roofer. Matter of fact, I hate heights. But but they would contact me because they needed a roof done. I knew roofers, so we made a connection that way, and so I kind of made it a business. I started out making it a business. Okay, well, what else do you need? You need your siding done? Okay, we can do that. Well, look, you want us to take the whole project on? Okay, well, I didn't know all of it at the time, but I would bring in the people who I thought were experts in the field and kind of weave our way through it. It wasn't easy because, again, I ran into all those same guys that you guys run into. Oh, yeah, we can do this. And
I do everything. I can do everything.
Yeah, I can do all that stuff, and they can't. So I had to go through a ton of those guys.
You say that, I'm running.
Yeah. I went through a ton of those guys. But, I mean, fortunately, to this day now, anybody that's in my phone, it's about that business, man. They know what they're doing, they get it done. And I built relationships over the years,
Phone book.
Yeah, so now, anyway, we kind of worked it that way, and eventually it just grew into a business. I finally said, well, you know what, look, we're going to invest in ourselves and not just do properties for everybody else. Let's grab a property here and let's rehab this stuff ourselves and make a little money. And we did that, and we just kept going. And then I finally, and then we can get into how I got into new construction, whatever you.
So the contracting is what pulls you out.
Yes.
You know what, Julius? I haven't mentioned this public, but I really think that real estate will save your life.
It can.
Real estate saved my life. In
Yeah.
fact, I want to write a book. Anybody, I'm telling you, man, I met my wife through real estate. I've refinanced it. I've lived in it, rented it out, and you're working on it. It saved your life.
Yeah, it really did. You know, and I'm excited about it now. You know, I mean, like this. I love doing what I do. You know, I mean, I really do. I wake up every day now because now I look at it from, my daughter's an artist, and I look at it from an artistic point of view. You know, like I'm taking this empty piece of land and creating something. And when I'm done with it, I can say I did that. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just a really good feeling to me. You know, to take nothing and turn it into something sustainable that a family's gonna live in. And I love that piece. I love that part of it. You know, yeah. And everybody can win. Everybody can win in real estate if it's done right. Like, you know, I mean, just do good, clean, honest business, and everybody can win. From the investor, from your electrician, you know, your foundation guys, everybody that's involved in the process can win, earn money, and move on to the next thing as long as it's done honestly and done the right way. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, that's it. Anyway.
I got that in here too. I want to talk about the jobs that we create as investors.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get looked at as so bad, but I got that as a question. But one more thing below the sea level, then we're going to go to sea level. Hard failure. Walt Disney says everybody needs an extremely hard failure at a young age. And I know I got wiped out in 2008. I want to ask you, is that something that's required, Julius, or can we get around that, in your opinion? Because I listen to you, and you got a hard failure.
Yeah.
Now look at you now. I mean, in fact, everybody I know has had one, my brother.
Sure.
So, I mean, is there a way around that, or do you think that is in the path?
I think there is a way around it, and this is part of what my platform is about as it grows, and I learn from my mentor about educating people in this business, right? I think that you shouldn't have to go through a hard failure if you're guided the right way through this business. And that's very possible if you, A, are a willing participant and want to learn, and B, you find the right people to teach you, right? Unfortunately for me, I didn't find the right people to teach me initially, you know, so I had to go through that, you know, but it brought me out on the other side and allowed me the opportunity to be able to sit here today and talk to other people about how not to go through those hard times. You see what I'm saying? You shouldn't have to. You know, if you seek out the information, it's there. You know, you look at Kris's platform, that's what his whole platform is about. You know, teaching people how to do this without the failures. You know, it does give you a different perspective, you know, when you go through a hardship. You know, I mean, you really do. You take stock of that and yourself, and you know, and you understand that you have to kind of develop in a different way. So it's not altogether bad, but at the same time, you can learn the right way right out of the gate, and just you know, and use that to your advantage. You know, these resources that you have today. That's one great thing I like about where we are today in this social media era. You know, so much information is just available to you. I look at our children. You know, like they're so much better than we are and smarter than we are because they have access to information. It's right there in the palm of their hands. You know what I'm saying? So yeah,
it's insane.
Don't
get me started on how many people I see wasting time on the phone with needless stuff. I get upset when I'm like, do you know what you have in your hand to learn anything in the whole world? And you watching Jay-Z and Beyonce. Yeah. Oh Lord.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully that the younger generation will listen and take heed to that, Julius.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so we're fast forwarding to new construction. Why new construction, and why not doing a bunch of renovations like me and other guys out here?
Well, for me, it was, I think, just a shift from, again, you know, I touched on all the people that came to me with their renovation projects and they wanted us to do them, so we've done a ton of them.
That's just rehabbing stuff.
Rehabbing additions, all different, you know, aspects of renovations and rehabbing. And then I also came to find out that it was a little bit frustrating because, you know, just like I'm sure you know and anybody has done them, once you get into a project, I might set a budget for $30,000, and before it's done and over with, that budget's climbed to 45. Because of unknowns, things you didn't see. And if you're like me, you like to do them in a way that I've always been big. I don't want to have to come back to a job. Once I'm done with it, I want to be done with it, right? And a lot of people were, I've seen it a ton of times where people will go
about it, Jake. Talk
yeah,
about it.
they'll make a house look absolutely beautiful on the inside, but the crawl space was never touched. The attic was never touched. And then when the home inspector comes in, he has a report about, the size of a book, and then they wonder why. You know what I'm saying? Well, that picker list is like, 10,000 items because you didn't do a lot of stuff that you should have done, right? But, we would get into projects, and of course, if, like one of the investors I was talking about, we'd go in with a budget of $30,000, and I'd call them and say, hey, look, man, we just opened up the floor here. We got to replace some floor joists and a couple of piers under the house, and I need another $5,000. And they're like, what? They're going crazy, and and that happens. It just happens in this business. There's no way to avoid it. I'm not trying to get more money from you. It's something we have to fix, but it happens. And so, once I got to doing new construction, which I'll tell you how that happened, but it just opened my eyes to a different way of doing it, and it was just cleaner work. And so I'll tell you.
Let's do it. Well, you're doing renovations, right? So you're doing renovations, fixing up for other people, doing them for yourself. Yeah. Done a million of those, and now, did you find some land? Did you just happen to say, let me try this, or did someone approach you, or how did it come about?
So it just so happened that one of those investors, Bob Scholler, I can say his name now because he's fully retired from his business and off living a great life somewhere now, but Bob called me one day and he said, Julius, he said, listen, man, because I had already done maybe 10 or 15 of his properties, got them renovations, got them fixed up, and we built trust. He knew that he can trust me to do what I said I'm going to do. So he said, listen, man, I got a piece of land, but I don't know should we build a house on it, or you want to build a house, and I didn't want to tell him no, right, because I hadn't built the house yet. I wanted the opportunity to do it, so I fudged it a little bit. I was like, yeah, Bob, there's no problem. let's do it, And so, we can get it done. And I had no idea where to start, other than to make a few phone calls to some friends, right? And just
in your mind, you could probably sell it all out to somebody else even if you didn't know anything, right?
Okay. But there's a process, like there's a lot of stuff that you have to know before you can even put shovels in the ground, right? You got to know if you can even build a house on this piece of property. He might own it, and it might not even meet the minimum requirements for zoning to build a house on it. He might just own a piece of dirt forever, so I mean,
which is a nightmare about that.
Oh yeah, absolute nightmare. So we got a lot to talk about when it comes to that kind of stuff. But but fortunately, I was able to contact a few friends of mine who had already built a few houses, right? And the reason I got to know them is because one of the businesses I developed from that whole era when I lost everything was a heating and AC company. And I'm a little plug right here. We actually provide heating and AC services for a lot of people around town. We don't really do it for the general public so much. We are getting ready to start though, but we primarily did it for builders. So we had a few builders who would call me and say, "Hey man, I need you to come install heating and AC in this new house, whatever." And we were doing that for them, but I hadn't built a house yet. So fortunately, I got a hold of a friend of mine. His name is Scott Mendenhall, and Scott. He said, look, man, I'm gonna show you how to do this, man. So he took me through.
He was building already.
He was building houses, right. And let me back up. He had just kind of really started himself. But Scott was a super smart guy who I respected, and I knew if anybody would kind of show me, he would, We were both young, and as a matter of fact, when we went down to the city of Newport News, where this property was at, they called us the Young Guns because we were in there every day hounding them with questions like, with the plans and all this stuff. And what about this? And how do you do that? And this is like, look, have you guys ever built a house before? I was like, well, he has. He said, well, why did you know this? I'm like, look, man, just show us. So anyway, we learned through pestering the hell out of the people at the city until we figured it out. That's too funny. Yeah, until we got a building permit. It took us forever to get a building permit, our first permit. But so Scott took me through the processes, of ensuring that the property is buildable by talking to zoning and making sure that it meets the requirements for a new construction home to be built, talking to utilities to make sure that the property had water and sewer on the property, or if it didn't, we would have had to get taps in the street and bring it over to the property. All these things that are important to know before you actually purchase a piece of property.
Infrastructure.
Yeah, all of the development pieces. That's why it's development. It's very important, to do all that stuff. I actually got a phone call from somebody the other day who had already purchased a piece of property, and come to find out that this property had been on the market for like 10 years. It was in this really nice neighborhood, and but unfortunately, the property couldn't be built on because there was an easement through it that the city would not allow you to build a house on. And they paid $60,000 for this piece of property that they're just going to own forever.
Wow.
And it's unfortunate, but it happens, because people don't do
Y'all
their
hear
homework. Yeah.
60 grand, that's a lot of dough to lose.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I can't imagine explaining that to my wife. My daughter's like, yeah, you better not. But
With that land, only thing you could do was hold it or maybe do a garden or something.
Yeah, maybe they might let you do a little neighborhood park or something like that. Or
No house, though.
No house. No house. And so it's very important to do this, what we call due diligence, before you purchase a piece of property. You can lock it up. You can write a contract for it and, tell them, we'll purchase it after all of our due diligence period is done and we make sure that everything is good to go. And then you go from there. But certainly don't go to the closing table until you know for a fact that you can build a house on that property.
I want to just...
I may have jumped ahead, I'm sorry.
No, So I wanted to stay there for a minute. Guys, I had some land in Western Branch that I was going to buy recently. It was waterfront property, man. The guy wanted 170 or whatever. So I was going to build my house on it. So I put it under contract, right? And then I talked to one of my guys, and that's why I keep guys around me like him that make way more money than me, y'all, right? So I want to make sure y'all keep mentors on your phone too. I called him up, he pulls it up, he comes to look at it, he goes, Kris, this is in the Chesapeake Bay Conservation Act area. You'll never get a permit. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what is the Chesapeake Bay Conservation Act? I don't even know what that was, right? So I went down to the city, they're like, yeah, if you want to build on this, the Chesapeake Bay Committee meets twice a year.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay. So now, Julius, as you say that, do your due diligence on this land, y'all. You're going to get your butt in a real sling. That I was going to have to move some trees if I tore a tree down.
Yep.
Do you know they're going to make me plant new
Plant
trees?
trees, yeah.
And these, not small trees, you got to bring in
10 foot, 16 foot trees.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that lot is still for sale. I'm glad I didn't buy it. So I just want you guys to know that it's a lot of pitfalls that you can really, really get hemmed up and you're friend with that 60K.
Absolutely.
All right, so you're building that, and Bob said, let's build a house, or he showed you how to do it, you build it properly, go fast forward.
Yeah. So we dig into it, and we go through the process. It took, like I said, it took us a while to get our first building permit because we didn't understand all of the documentation that the city needed, and our site plan development and our actual construction plans and all these things that we needed to bring down to get approval. And then, of course, once the city reviews all of this stuff, they come back with comments about, well, this needs to be corrected, you gotta fix this, send it back in, it takes another 2 weeks, blah, blah, blah. It takes a long time. Finally got our building permit. We go into construction, and I start learning the process. For me, it's just about choreographing the job, right? There's certain steps that you have to take from start to finish. You just work your way through it from your footing to your foundation walls to your subfloor to framing and so on. Once you learn that process, as an investor or a contractor, it's fairly simple for me. But the issue is finding the right people to do the job, right? Because you don't want to just go hire Joe Schmo, the framer, who's not familiar with code, who understands how a rafter and your eaves are supposed to be built, or how your subfloor is supposed to be done, or these guys have to know this work, right? If they don't, then you're going to run into a lot of issues. You'll fail inspections, and you're constantly going back and forth through this process until you really figure it out. So always make sure that you have good subcontractors. I tell people that all the time. It's super important. You know, the guy that does my foundations he's been doing it for 15 years with me. We've been working together for 15 years now. So it's simple. I give him the plans, and he calls me when it's done.
Don't gotta think about it.
You know what I'm saying? It's it's not a whole lot of figuring out at this point. And especially now because we're building 20 houses at one time, right? So I can't have, you know, a different crew of electricians every time I build a house. I need those same guys that go in and knock it out in a day, and we're on to the next house. You know, yeah. So
you started there. Okay,
yeah,
I'm trying to get your story, and then we're gonna get into the actual
Sure.
the moving parts. So
Yeah.
after you did that one, turned out okay. Nightmare, pretty cool.
No, it turned out okay. You know, I mean, it really did.
Because of your guy.
Yeah, because I had some guidance, right? But yeah, it turned out okay.
Did he stay with you all the way through, or did you just run and do it?
He did. He
Okay.
stayed with me through the entire process. I had to share some of my money with him, you know, but I had no problem with that because he taught me something. I mean, I paid for school. I have no problem with that, you know. And so it worked out great. We got it done. Bob Scholler was happy, and we actually wound up to try to shorten the story. I wound up building probably 30 houses with Bob before it was all said and done.
Wow.
Before he decided that he just wanted to
Be
pull
done.
chocks and call it a day. You know?
Okay, so that after that, you're the new construction guy.
Yeah. We were off and running from there. You know, again, through the work with Bob, Bob knew some of the other investors who owned property, and of course, they wanted to, you know, build houses with Julius. So
Environment.
It worked out great. Yeah, exactly. Put ourselves in the right environment.
So
you know?
crucial, dog.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, that was a huge blessing for us, man. So
what was the switch that went on, Jay, to go from I'm done with renovations? Not to say that you don't still do them, but your focus went to new cons.
Once I understood the budget made sense for me, right? Because a lot of times, you know, when we're building houses, I'm not building 20 different houses. You know, we usually have a model or a few different models, and we build that same house, right? So once I built it one time, I know what it cost me. I know what all my costs are from start to finish. Now, there's going to be some variations in that based off of, you know, the elevations of the house, if I have to build it a little bit taller here, or if I have to install water and sewer taps because they don't exist on this property already. There's different factors that may change, but for the bulk of the project, it's raining outside. Hopefully everybody's got their windows rolled up.
You check out windows? I always do.
Yeah,
I always leave my windows down. Good.
Oh yeah. Now, once I understood the budget, and I knew, okay, well, this model house cost me, I'll just use flat numbers, $200,000 to build it. Now I can work with that, right? Because I know what I'm doing each time, and for me, the work was cleaner, right? It was a lot cleaner than a monster renovation where, you know, I'm sure you guys have seen them. It could take you, you know, 3 months to just do a renovation when I can build a house in 3 months. Wow. You know, it was a new product. People love to, you know, if they're going to purchase a house, they want to move into a new construction house where you know, they won't have the issue of, you know, maybe the water heater going out in 6 months after they move in, or, you know, roof leak a couple of months after they move in. Everything is brand new, and the sales were different. Like, we could get them sold. We were selling houses before we finished building them. I mean, we had you know, people wanting to purchase the house when we were in the framing stage, you know, which was great. And we already had contracts. You know, we're ready to roll. So, and that gave the buyers the opportunity to say, well, you know, if they come in early enough, they could pick what color paint they wanted and all those types of things. It was, you know, worked out nice. So I like that part of it, you know, where we can really tailor down our numbers and know exactly what it's going to cost us to build this house. And I didn't have somebody screaming at me because I just had to charge them an extra 10 grand because, you know, the walls are rotted, you know, or something like crazy like that. Yeah. So,
okay, so you found more fulfillment with new constructions than doing the. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So we're talking about. Let's start at the top. I always think about business top of funnel, stage number one, locating the prospect that you might want to do. Let's just talk about that a little bit.
Sure.
Jay, tell us about your prospect location perspective, or your system, or what makes something good. How do you find what you want to do lots you want to buy, or you're tearing down, or what are you doing?
Sure. So in this day and age, lots are a little bit harder to find, right? Because just say, for instance, a city like Norfolk, there's not a lot of open land left, right? So you're not just going to find a whole bunch of empty lots. Generally, it'll be an older, dilapidated house that you'll have to tear down, which is an added cost, right? To get a house demolished, trees removed, to clear the lot to make way for a new construction house. And a lot of times, the properties are brought to us through our real estate agents or our wholesalers, who will contact me and say, "Hey, look, man, I got I got a house locked. I got a property locked up in Hampton. These are the numbers. Take a look at it and see if it's something you'd be interested."
You go with wholesalers.
Yeah.
You mind? Okay, cool.
Yep.
So are you doing regarding the percentages? What's more? Break it down regarding tear downs versus vacant lots. Is it 50-50, 60-40?
I would say I'd probably say more 60-40 on the tear downs.
You're doing more tear downs than
Yeah.
new lots.
Yeah. I am personally. Now somebody else may have access to different
We
things, but
hear
yeah,
it
for
from
me,
you tonight.
for me,
I'm
I'm especially now, because what's happening is, the competition is more fierce, right?
It's fierce every day. More people coming in.
Yeah, you got larger companies like EDC, Equity Development Corporation. I know
They're
those
still
guys,
around?
Nick and Jack. Yeah. They're some of the people I learned this business from back in the days.
Oh, wow.
And they're doing major projects up in Ocean View, and they're absorbing the property, right? Because their checkbooks are so big, right? A lot that me or Kris might go in and say, "Well, look, man, I'll pay you 70 for it." They don't care if they pay 80 or 90 for it, right? Because they're doing such volume, where we may be building 20, 30 houses a year, they're building 150 of them. So they're making the money up in volume, and that's where it's really at now. Those home runs, just to touch on that really quickly.
Let's stay there for a minute, because a lot of people aren't doing volume.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do people do 50, 60 deals in this room? Yeah, so most people aren't doing that type of volume, including me. So it's kind of it's kind of hard to wrap your mind around why would somebody, when I go to the foreclosure steps,
Sure.
these dudes are paying ridiculous amounts of money for these houses.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I know good well, no way I could pay that for this house.
Yeah.
But with volume, go ahead.
Yeah, with volume, that's where you're making your money now. Back then, when the housing market was what it was before the crash and all that, you could go in and renovate a project and turn $80,000, $100,000 on one project. There's very few and far between of those out there now. You don't find those very often. Now, you're in that $50,000 range, and that's fine. That's a good profit.
On average.
Yeah, it's not a bad profit for a 2 or 3 month operation, but where people are making those dollars up is in the volume. Now, instead of doing 1 or 2 houses a year, they might do 5, 6, 8 houses a year to make that volume. So now that 40,000, you're multiplying that times 8, as opposed to just 2. You know what I'm saying? So it makes sense for a lot of people that can handle it. Now, a lot of people that get into this business are not in it full time. They don't have the time to dedicate to a project like that and to that type of volume. So that's where they're reaching out to people like myself and Kris, who can develop the projects for them in a partnership. Sure. Are we taking questions, Kris?
No.
Oh, the gentleman had a question.
Questions at the end, if you don't mind holding all the questions. Thank you, just for the recording. For
Keep it in mind, though.
For you too.
Yeah.
Just jot it down. Yeah, my brother. Go ahead.
Yeah. So it's it's important for you to kind of know your availability to this. Like I said, not everybody does this every day for a living. This is what I do for a living. I wake up every day doing this. So it's not too far fetched for me to. It's not because I do it to build 20 houses in a year. You just have to kind of assess for yourself what you can and can't do. And then and again, it doesn't exclude you from doing high volume. You just have to find the right team to make it happen.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So you like working with wholesalers?
Yeah, wholesalers. I've found quite a few of my deals from wholesalers. A lot of times wholesalers will do a lot of, if you have the right ones, they'll do a lot of the preliminary legwork, right? Before they bring the deal to me, they'll already know that it's a buildable lot. They've already gone to the city. Some lots which are non-conforming, which we can probably get into later. Non-conforming just means that they have to do a lot more legwork to understand that you can build a house on it. They've done that legwork. They've already checked to see if it has existing water and sewer, all those types of things. So it's important that if you have a wholesaler, that they do a lot of legwork for you. And comps, they'll provide comparables to let you know what the houses in that neighborhood are selling for. So you can start working back in your numbers down and say, okay, well, the houses in this neighborhood sell for $350. Okay, well, I know I got to put this house on it. It only cost me this much to build it, and start doing all your math. And if it makes sense, then you can do it.
So these guys know that you're a builder, because I'm thinking they understand that you have to tear the house down. They're calculating all of that in before.
Sure.
Oh wow.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. A good wholesaler. Some of them, they're just they just want to make the deal, right? To be honest, they just want to make the deal, put a few dollars in their pocket and go on about their business, and you could be stuck with a property that you can't even do anything with, and it's like, hey man, that's your job. You know what I'm saying? You should have did all the research, right? Again, that all goes back to relationships and the people that you're dealing with. If you know them and they know you, and all those types of things. If it's somebody new you never done business with, you want to double check behind them. Checks and balances. You know what I'm saying? Make sure that they,
Any other way
the information they're giving you is correct.
Information, yeah, that's got to be right.
Yeah.
Any other ways you want to share with our audience and my roundup homies regarding locating prospects, Julius? Or
yeah. So I think a lot of times, what you can do to try to find properties, right? I'm out and about all day long. I'm in almost every city every day.
I'll be seeing you.
Yeah, I'm from Suffolk in the morning, and Newport News, and back and forth, and a tank of gas a day, unfortunately. But when I'm moving around the city like that, I have the opportunities to see a lot of places that may be potential properties that I can buy. And I'll stop in. If nobody is living in the house, because usually it's a dilapidated property, nobody's living there, I'll talk to the neighbor. Say, hey, man, who owns this property? Don't be scared to talk to people, because a lot of times I found deals like that. The guys say, hey, yeah, my cousin owns it, man. He wanted to sell it. Oh, really? Well, give me his number. You know what I'm saying? And like stuff like that's happened to me. You just never know. So if you see something that piques your interest, go talk to the neighbors. Go see if you can find out who owns it. If you have a really good real estate agent, or if you're a good detective yourself, I suck at that kind of stuff. But like I could give the name, I can give the address to one of my wholesalers, and he's a good friend of mine. He'll run it down to find out who owns it, where they live, their phone number, their social security number, and what their kids' first names are, and all that. And I'll track them down and make them an offer, see if they want to sell the property. So yeah, doing a little bit of footwork and legwork out there.
Driving for dollars. We'll put that under driving for dollars then.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you want to drop?
No. That's basically
it. You got some good
it,
solid agents though, Julius. I don't want people to think that all agents are created equal.
That's very true.
Even when people see me with you online, I get people will say, this guy, and the people that say this, I know that they're monsters.
Yeah.
And then they know you. I'm like, okay, so y'all working, y'all got some stuff going.
Yeah. It's definitely good to find good real estate agents. And again, like you're sitting in a room like full of people, right? Like Kris said, don't leave here and not introduce yourself to somebody, because there may be an agent in here. You know what I'm saying?
Or raise your hand. Any agents?
Any real estate agents here?
Right
yeah,
there,
look, we got 2 resources right here.
3. Okay, we got 3 right there.
Yeah, man.
Wow,
my
cool.
little brother Ahmad, man. You got agents right here that you can talk to, and we got another one back there. Okay, how you
3
doing?
Here, yep, another agent.
Yeah, so talk to him. Use your resources. You know what I'm saying? We know, like he just said, he knows some monsters, man. We know real estate agents. Connect with us and find that information out. From the people that are actually doing it. I don't. I'm never gonna learn how to become a millionaire from the guy that makes $30,000 a year.
There you go, Jay.
You have to connect with the people that are doing it. You know what I'm saying? And you're, if you listen to yourself, you're a good judge of character, right? You'll determine for yourself if the person you're talking to is the right person you need to be talking to. And if not, you'll find out in very short order. But always, have those conversations, talk to people, utilize your resources, man. That's what we're here for, This is not just us talking today and I don't ever want to see you guys again. I'm hoping that y'all connect with me, connect with Kris, and, let us help you through it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't have any issue with that whatsoever. You can
Thank you.
hit me up, you know what I'm saying? And, like I said, my brothers are here. There's a lot of information. And what I don't know, sorry. What I don't know, if I don't know the answer to the question, I'll find it. Somebody I know knows the answer to that question. I promise you that. I've been doing this too long, right? So, we can help you out.
But what about your agents, Julius? No doubt you didn't start off dealing with the great agents that you deal with today. I know
True.
for me, I went through a whole bunch of them.
Oh, yeah.
So can you just talk about that journey?
Absolutely, yeah. Real estate agents, again, everybody is in this business to turn a profit. Real estate agents are no different, but it's people, when I learn people, I have to sit down and talk to people and really kind of gauge who they are, I went through a couple of real estate agents who...
You want to tell a little bit about that?
Yeah.
Talk about the ones before? Or,
yeah.
'cause some people, does everybody have a solid investor-friendly agent? Do people have? Y'all got that? Some people do, some don't. Working on it. Yeah, from my opinion, my perspective, it's hard to find an agent, a real investor-friendly agent.
Sure, I'm glad you said it like that because they're not all, like you said, they're not all built the same. So investor-friendly agents are like that. That's important because they have to understand.
You do it every day.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily think about your agent,
Exactly.
You don't think about the ones that are not like him or her.
Exactly. That's right. I mean, I probably wouldn't have even given it a thought had you not put it in that perspective. I mean, that makes perfect sense. The agents that I deal with are investor-friendly agents because they understand what I'm doing and they work to that goal. I'm not somebody that's just looking to buy a house and move in it. They know that about me, right? They know that I'm looking for a property that I want to develop, a property that I want to renovate, and so, I have to align myself with like-minded people. You know what I'm saying? Again, I've had agents in the past that didn't think that way. It's just like, just look at me as another client that wants to buy a house. No, that's not what I'm here for, man. I need you to, do a little bit more research for me. I need you to do the comps, and when you bring this property to me, let's dig into it a little bit because, if you and I are working together and we gel, I'm gonna be feeding you a lot of business. You know what I'm saying?
That's why I want to tell our viewers the benefit because some people think that an investor lowball, they're not going to make it a commission. Nah, I don't want to work with an investor because the commission is lower.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I get it. To a certain degree that makes sense, but at the same time you have to understand who you're dealing with. You know what I'm saying? I'm not just bringing you one deal. I'm showing you a track record. I built 30 houses last year. You want that business or not? You know what I'm saying? So people, and you build relationships with people, right? You know what I'm saying? If you have an agent that you deal with now and you like them generally and you want to give them business, talk to them. Let them know exactly what it is you're doing so that they can conform to what it is that you need from them, have those conversations, don't just, I'm not quick to throw people away, right away. Sometimes you gotta kind of work it a little bit, you know what I'm saying? Give people the opportunity to understand who you are and to understand them, and you can kind of mold and grow together, right? Who knows, they might turn out to be the person that sells that $5 million house that you built or whatever, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just that, you build those relationships if you feel like they're worth it. You got to kind of judge that for yourself. But
so you went through a few.
Yeah, so we went through a few.
All right, so y'all heard that. If he went through a few, I went through a few. It's gonna take some time.
Yeah.
The first agent you meet might not be the girl or the guy.
Sure.
That's gonna be the one that's gonna be with you. I don't know. It may or may not, but don't go in thinking that this is the one the first time.
Yeah.
Would you say?
No, you're right. I mean, it's not. It's just not that way, But again, like I said, use your resources.
Get a referral.
I have great real estate agents that I deal with all the time, and there's a few great real estate agents in here today. That you can talk to, exchange information, and
Got it.
yeah.
So Julius, I'm curious to know. I have been wanting to ask you this because I have gotten murdered regarding scheduling. And I want you to talk about how important scheduling is regarding getting these houses done. I mean,
Sure.
you got to be a master, because if somebody shows up today and something's not done, they can't even get started until this is done. So they're not working, and then you got these dudes got to finish that
Sure.
job to get the other ones in.
Yeah.
How do you do it?
Yeah. Well, firstly, you have to understand the processes of building a house, right? And once you learn that, then you can really understand how the timing works, right? Like, just say, for instance, the very first step in building a house is the footing. You have to be able to cut your lines into the ground, excavate, and before you can start pouring your concrete and building the block walls. You have to know how long that takes. You got to know your foundation guy's doing it the right way. You got to pass an inspection. So you have to accommodate for all of that time, and it's important that once you actually learn the process of it from your footer, and I can go through the whole process of building a house from start to finish, but you start with your footer, your foundation, your subfloor, and so on. And you have to understand how long these things take, and your subcontractors make a huge difference in that, right? Fortunately for me, I speak from my perspective of where I am today. Everybody that is involved in the building and the construction of my properties is above board. They do it the right way. They do it the right way the first time, right? And so for me, that's important, especially when I'm building 20 houses. I don't have time to circle back, right? So, but unfortunately, a lot of people don't have that. So they don't know, this guy's taking 2 weeks to dig the footer out. It takes a day, if you got the right people doing it. Your block walls, your foundation. My crew does it in a day, maybe a day and a half if it's a 5,000 square foot house. A 2,000 square foot house, a day, the foundation is built. You know what I'm saying? So, your subcontractors make a huge difference in how expeditiously you can actually move through a project, right? And then that timing, again, is very important. You have to know your construction schedule. At this stage, I've built a construction schedule. I'm going to tear this mic up. At this stage, I built a construction schedule, so I know on my board, I've got foundation going in week 1, and I know how many days it's going to take, and I mark all that off on my board. And if I see that schedule is slipping, generally that may happen with us because of weather. Okay. That's the only reason why. Other than that, scheduling these people to come do it, because I'm not the only builder that they do foundations for, right? Yeah. My foundation guy might be tied up for a week, but I'm waiting for him because he's the best in the business, right? I'm not just gonna pick Joe Schmo to build my foundations. It's the most important part of the house.
Let's stay there. So, just put a pin on that, Julius, sure. For people that want to get work done instantly. Mm-hmm. You're willing to wait. I want y'all to hear that. You're willing to wait for the guy. That wasn't me 20 years ago. I wanted it done yesterday. Sure, yeah. Right? Now I'm like, when can you do it? 30 days? Cool. So I'm hearing you're this exact same way. You're willing to just sit on it, like, whenever you're ready, let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of times, just to touch on that a little bit, a lot of times I don't have to wait that long because I've already pre-planned what I'm doing, right? I know when I'm getting my building permit, right? So if I know I've presented them the last few documents I need, I should have that building permit next Monday. As soon as I have that building permit in my hand, I want that foundation dug out. So I'm telling my guys in advance, hey, listen, next Tuesday, Wednesday at the latest, I'm gonna be ready for you to dig this foundation out. Get me in your schedule,
Okay.
And so,
So you're talking to them before this stuff?
Yeah, I'm talking to them before giving them
That's
as much advance notice as possible so that they can work me in the schedule. Unless you actually have these guys that work for you in-house, you don't own their schedule. They come when their schedule is freed up, as much pre-planning as possible. You have to kind of think through the process and know, and it comes with time. Like, I didn't know all that stuff in the beginning. You know what I'm saying? I was either hiring the wrong contractor because I wanted to get it done yesterday, or I just didn't plan it. Like windows. I get a framing inspection. I get a sheathing inspection, and I can drive the house in and put my windows in. Well, I didn't put the order in for the windows. You know what I'm saying? So now, you know, the guys are there ready to do it. I don't have the windows. They got to come back to
How
me.
long does it take to get windows?
Yeah, I mean, you can now it's much better since COVID's all over with, but you can go to Home Depot and get windows now. But I'm just saying,
Generally speaking,
you might have special order windows that you have to order. Yeah, if you got special order windows, it could take you 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
That's
to get those
something you
windows,
learn.
know? Yeah, you learn over time, you know.
I can see the house now.
Yeah, it happens. It happens.
Okay.
You know, so but that's inexperience, and you learn those things as you get further along down the road. You know, to pre-plan for that kind of stuff. It's, you know, it really hit us. Like, just real quick to touch on COVID. When COVID happened, you know, we didn't expect that the windows would dry up. I normally go to Kempsville Building and get my windows in a day. I'm calling them. I'm like, yo, I need windows. They're like, well, sorry, buddy, we're not getting windows in for another 3 or 4 weeks. I'm like, what? You know, so that really hit us in the head when COVID happened. But you know, fortunately, you know, we're out of that now, so we have access to materials and stuff that we need a lot quicker. But yeah, I mean, you know, it's really just comes with pre-planning and learning the process. You know, and again, this goes back to utilizing your resources because you have people out here with experience that can kind of help you with that, you know what I'm saying, and show you how to do that, you know, because I didn't have anybody really teaching me that, you know what I'm saying, like, you know, Scott was there, but he wasn't, and I had to kind of muddle through some things, you know, to figure it out, but, you know.
Scheduling, so
scheduling is super important.
I just can't imagine, you've got a board, and so you know what phase you're in, and you know, because I've talked to you many times, and you're waiting on a permit, we're gonna get to interfacing with the city, that's a big one. But you're waiting for this, you're waiting for somebody to do this. I mean, your mind, I mean, from my perspective, the scheduling is where I get murdered. Like, because it's just, you don't know what's coming at the same time, but I'm hearing you say you have it all on board and you're planning on stuff in the future.
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
I haven't got that one down yet. I'm still working on that one.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
That's a skill.
Pre-planning. Unfortunately, you know, I was doing all this by myself at one point, you know, and I think, you know, I was just scared to like step out and bring somebody else in because I didn't think that they would do it with the same passion, and you know, it's not theirs. So, you know, and then I was worried about money. I'm like, man, am I gonna be paying somebody too much to do this when I should just do it myself? And I had to release that. You know what I'm saying? Like that was a big Achilles heel for me for a long time. You know, just wanting to do it myself because I'm thinking I'm saving money, but I was limiting myself in the amount of work that I could get done if I had brought somebody else in, right? So once I opened myself up to that idea and I actually did it and I hired a superintendent, it felt like the weight of the world was off my shoulders. Now I can fly, you know what I'm saying? I went from building 5 houses to 25 houses in 1 year.
Wow.
You know, because I was able to focus on getting the permits approved, getting everything I needed to take care of that part while he was in the field pushing the construction, you know, making sure things were getting done.
Julius, I came to the realization that I could hire people that were better than me.
Yeah.
Is that the same for you?
It is, yeah, absolutely.
Could you talk about that a little bit? Because my dad was always say, if you want it done right,
yeah, you got to do it yourself.
And I'm like, that is the worst advice you can tell somebody.
Yeah.
If you want it done right, hire the guy that knows how to do it.
Yeah.
Go.
That's right. Yeah, man. I mean, you know, my situation worked out really great. I feel like, you know, I mean, listen, I'm absolutely blessed, right? Because I have great people around me to help me get this stuff done. But the person that I hired, he happened to be the building official for the city of Norfolk. Wow. So he was in charge of everything down there at the city of Norfolk when it came to building codes and compliance, right? He was the head guy. All of the inspectors that come out here in the field, they all worked for him. And this man forgot more about construction than I know. And fortunately, he retired from the city of Norfolk. We had become friends over the years, and he said, you know, he got into a situation in his house. He needed a hand. I helped him out, and we got to talking. He said, Julius, man, if you ever need a hand out there, man, I'm retired. I ain't doing nothing. And I'm like, man, okay, let me think about that. And I avoided it, right? I didn't take him up on the offer initially. I was just like, man, I can't afford to pay this guy, man. Like, I don't want to do that. You know what I'm saying? I need as much money in my pocket as I got 2 kids getting ready to go to college, man. I need all that money. But I was like, one day I had gotten a bunch of permits approved at one time. I'm like, man, how am I going to do all of this stuff, right? Yeah, it's like, man, how am I gonna manage doing all this? It got crazy. It was like
That's impossible, right? It would be a little. Could you manage?
Yeah, it is to do it effectively. You know, I would have finally muddled through it and got it done, but I mean, like, I would have killed myself doing it. I wouldn't have been able to spend time with my family. I wouldn't have, you know, I would have sacrificed a lot, you know. And so I called him. I said, JJ, man, you still, I take you up on that offer, man? He said, yeah, man, I told you, give me a call. And we just been rolling ever since then. You know, he's just been a huge, huge blessing to me, you know, in the way of helping, you know, the groundwork and getting things moved forward out in the field, you know, which allowed me the opportunity to sit down with, you know, my wholesalers and my real estate agents and find the next project. You know what I'm saying? Now I'm not stuck here doing this. I can move now, you know, and so that's helped out quite a bit.
So I want to talk about drawings from the start,
Sure.
and then we'll get into city interfacing, which I wish you could transfer some of that grief onto some of the people here for dealing
Yeah.
with the city. I'm sure it ain't easy to do.
Not at all.
Let's talk about drawings, Jay, because
Sure.
what I have done, I've done some new construction, and it has taken me months to get these drawings done. And I want to talk about it from survey, site plan, all that, house plan.
Sure.
Talk about it a little bit.
Sure. Well, so it starts with the property itself, right? And understanding the makeup of the property. So, you know, not every lot is a perfect square or rectangle or whatever. You know, some lots are oddly shaped. I have a few of them right now. And so once you have what I like to call a canvas, you have this property, then you have to kind of figure out what you're going to put on it, right? And that's where your architect comes into play, because there's two people that are super important in this process, which is your architect and your surveyor, right? Those two guys tell you what you can and can't do with this property and what you can build on it. So initially, what I will do is contact my surveyor to make sure that he understands the lay of the land, so to speak, that this property is, in fact, shaped this certain way, and you can put a house on it, but you need to talk to the architect and let him know that he needs to construct something that is within these confines, whether the house is, you know, 20 foot wide by 40 foot deep. He'll know that based off of what they call setbacks, right? Each property in every city has what they call setbacks. That is a space of land from the property line inward that you cannot build in, that they do not want a permanent structure in, right? So just say, for instance, in Norfolk, generally a conforming lot is 50 foot wide by 100 foot deep, 5,000 square feet, right? And that's just a basic property. I mean, they come in all different shapes and sizes, and we can get deeper into that. But a 50 by 100 foot wide lot.
The square footage.
Right, the square footage of the property itself, 5,000 square foot, 50 foot wide by 100 foot deep. In that 50 foot width, they have what they call side setbacks. Those side setbacks in Norfolk are 5 feet, right? So from the property line, the actual property line, which is 50 foot apart from each other in width, you subtract 5 feet from this side and 5 feet from that side. That's the envelope that you have to build within right there, right? And then they have the same thing for the rear and the front setbacks, which are usually much longer. The front setbacks are generally 20 feet, the rear 20, 25 feet, whatever that is. So now that gives you this buildable pad that you can put a house in. And you want to utilize as much of that space as you can, right? So if that only leaves you with if you take 5 and 5 off each side, that leaves you with 40 feet, then you want to build a 40 foot wide house. Or generally, you know, some people won't go that far. It just depends on a lot of other variables that we can get into later. So now you have the building envelope. Now you're talking to your architect saying, hey, look, I need a house that fits whatever that building pad is. The architect will give you a set of plans based off of that, right? The plans are super important because obviously they detail the construction of the house, what it looks like, you know, what the floor plan is, and all your different measurements that you have on your plans. And I always say this, nobody should know your plans better than you, right? A lot of people see these plans and they see all these numbers on it and they see all of this wording and the notes and they don't read them, right? Because they just rely on, you know, give the plans to the framer and he'll know what to do. That's not altogether wrong, but at the same time, you need to know those plans, right? Because there's always a lot of details and notes in there that sometimes they'll miss, and you'll pay for it, right?
Give us an example, Julius.
Well, I mean, just say for instance, this has happened a very long time ago, but I had a set of plans, and the plans called for, it gave you options of how you can design your master bathroom, and it actually gave you an option of how you can design the kitchen, right? One of the options for the kitchen really wasn't the most aesthetically pleasing option. It kind of sectioned the kitchen off from the rest of the house. And in this day and age, you want that open floor plan. You want that, to give it a more spacious feel when you walk in the house. And this didn't do that. And so me not paying attention to those options, the framer just built the house and chose the option that was on the plans instead of looking at the other two options that were in the bottom of the notes. And I didn't look at them, and I didn't tell him which one I wanted. So he went with the one that was on the original plans. And so unfortunately, by the time we did it and it was all framed up and I paid any attention to it, it was too late. And the real estate agent came in and said, "Man, this looks odd. Why did you do the kitchen like this?" I'm like, "Well, I don't know. I mean, that's the way the plans were." And we got to looking at the plans, and the real estate agent noticed it. It's like, "No, you could have did this option right here." And I'm like, "Oh my God." So it just, eventually we sold the house and all that stuff. But I mean, I'm saying it just didn't look right. And it was because I didn't pay attention to the plans. I didn't read the plans thoroughly enough to understand that I had options, of doing it the way I wanted. So
okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, I have a saying: no one cares about your house more than you.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's yours, and and you should know it. Know those plans. So anyway, once these two guys get their heads together and you get a set of plans. Now, one thing for me is I've been fortunate enough now to deal with two architects I've been dealing with for years. They know the style of houses I like to build, and so life is a lot easier now. But building these relationships, like we were talking about earlier, with your architect and your surveyor are super important, because these guys are probably two of the most vital people in this process, right? So you get your plans, and you get once you get your set of plans, you have to provide those plans to the surveyor, because now he has to develop what's called a site plan. The site plan is more extensive than a survey, a physical survey. A physical survey is just a basic layout of the land, its measurements, and that's it. But a site plan is actually a development plan that shows the house that you want to put on it. It shows the footprint of the house. It shows you the direction of the water runoff and the drainage from the property out to the street. It shows a lot of detail, where your sewer and water lines are located in the street, where your power is located. In this day and age, they want a lot more detail on the plans, especially in cities like Norfolk, where you touched on it earlier, where you had to add trees to the property. Yeah. They want a canopy count, where you have to actually devise a plan to figure out what size trees you have to plant on the lot. Wow. And all of that stuff is input into the site plan development. And when you provide that to the city, the zoning department is the one that actually reviews that to make sure that it incorporates everything that they need, right? So, it's a lengthy process, but it's something that has to be done, and it's super important, right? It's a requirement. So now you've got your plans in hand, you got your site plan. Once you're satisfied with those plans and the plans fit on the property,
you have to pick your house, though, or you already picked the house. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. How do we get the site plans before we got to pick the house we want?
No, that's what I said. I said you actually take the plans that you've chosen and give those to the surveyor.
So that's 3 plans. Okay, I'm sorry. All right. So that's 3 sets. We got survey, draw.
Well, scratch survey, because survey, yes, you're not really doing a physical survey of the property. You're doing a site plan, which is even more extensive than a physical survey.
Okay.
Right. So a survey, a site plan is a survey, but it's more, right? So it does provide you a survey of the property, but it also provides you all of the details about the house itself, where it sits on the property, the position of it, and all of the other things that we just talked about, So the site plan is actually more extensive than a survey.
But I'm actually, I feel like I missed a step though, y'all.
No, please, I want to make sure everybody's clear.
Step about picking the house, Jay. I mean, we have we picked the house already yet?
Yeah, that's what I said. The plans is the house, right?
Well, we know. How do we know what we want to put on there? Do you pick that, or does the architect tell you that?
So I pick it, but
that's a skill from you. That's your skill,
right? And it really just based on my feeling, what I like about the house, because when the plans are provided to you from the architect, it has elevations on it, and those elevations are basically pictures of what the house looks like. It'll give you a front elevation, a side elevation, rear, and both sides, and the rear and the front. So you actually get to see what the house looks like in a drawing, right? And then it also lays out the floor plan. So the floor plan, you look at the floor plan, you see, it has a master bedroom on the first floor, which some people like, some people don't. It'll lay out it shows you the bathrooms and the kitchens and the entire house. So you get to work with that set of plans. And if there's certain things about it that you don't like, you can discuss that with the architect, and generally they can maneuver and move a bathroom here, or make a closet a little bit bigger here, or do whatever they can to make it work within the space that you have, right? And again, that space is determined by your setbacks on the property, right? So now, I'm sorry.
The buck stops with you. I mean, you look at what they give you. I just
right.
want to make sure.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I look at this. You're the one. I mean, it's not like they're making this decision. You have to.
Sure, that's right. Once I tell the architect what size house I need, then and I probably did skip a step. He can give you options. He'll give you different options. Hey, look, I got these 4 houses that will fit on that lot.
Okay.
Take a look at them. Let me know what you think. Do you like the way that this one looks in the front? And if you do, maybe I can make the interior look like this one. He can shift and move those things around to suit whatever it is you like most about the house.
Okay.
And for me, generally, I like a house to flow and make sense on the inside of it, right? I don't want a weird, placement of the bathroom. You know what I'm saying? Like, on the first floor, I don't necessarily want the door to the bathroom to open up into the living room when I have guests there and somebody use the bathroom and then they got, what I'm saying? Like, I want that door on the other side so that they come out the other way while my guests are in the living room being entertained or whatever. That, all these little things that, we all have, that pet peeves or things that you might like or not like about houses, So once you decide on a house that you like, then that's the one you're gonna go with. You give that house to the surveyor, who will then place the house in a site plan for you. And then once that site plan is developed, then you're almost ready to present your documentation to the city for a building permit. Almost.
It's a lot, y'all. I hope y'all taking notes. And Julius, you making it sound like this is real fast.
No, it's
What
not
are you talking?
fast. And forgive me if I do that, because it's fast for me now because obviously I do it every day. But it's a lot in the beginning. You know what I'm saying? To just try to find your way through these processes and what works best for you. You know what I'm saying? A lot of that has to do with your real estate agents too, right? Because the real estate agent can look at the comparables in that neighborhood and say, okay, well look, the houses that are selling have 4 bedrooms. They got 2.5 baths.
Something close to that.
The square footage of these houses is 2,200 square feet. So you don't want to build something that's 1,900 square feet because you're not keeping in line with the comps in the neighborhood, right? You want to keep in line with the comps. And you don't want to build something that's 5,000 square foot because in that neighborhood, you might get stuck. You know what I'm saying? We built this big old monster house and you can't get rid of it because people that want to spend $600,000 don't want to live in that neighborhood, So, so it's a lot of different things to really pay attention to when you're looking into this stuff, man.
So we got a site plan. We're ready to go to the city.
Not yet.
Oh.
Not yet. Now you got your site plan, you got your plans. Those plans, let me just back up a little bit. Those plans, once you've decided that those are the plans that you're going to use, your architect is going to provide you the plans, and he's going to provide you something else that's called a brace wall plan, It might be getting a little bit too technical right now, but it's something that's going to be needed. You take those architectural drawings and these brace wall plans and you provide them to your lumber company, right? Because what the lumber company has to do is assess what type of engineered wood is going to be required for this project. Now, what is engineered wood, you might ask?
Yeah.
So, engineered wood is not just a regular 2x4 or 2x6 or just something you can go buy at Home Depot and Lowe's. Engineered wood are items that you can purchase that allow for you to span your wood a longer distance, right? Just say, for instance, a 2x12 may only, technically by engineering standards, can only span 8 feet or 10 feet or whatever that number is. Don't give me the line because I can't remember right now. But a 2x12, let's say, for instance, the maximum distance that 2x12 can span is 10 feet before it's not effective anymore, right? Because when you're building a house, it has to be able to stand, right? You don't want to just put anything in and the house collapses, right? This is all done mathematically by people that are a lot smarter at this than I am. But what these engineers will do, well, they'll take those set of construction plans and they'll review them very intently to find out where all your load bearings are, right? There's a lot of pressure from a house from the top down. That's why the foundation has to be solid, right? For the house to stand. And all of this is done mathematically. So what they'll do is they'll look at it and they'll say, okay, well, listen, since your house is 30 feet wide, we can provide you a piece of wood that is engineered in such a way that it can span from the left side of the house to the right side of the house without you having to put in all of these other pieces of wood to make it work. Columns, all these other things, that you would have to do otherwise. It can be a cleaner job by you running this one piece of wood from left to right because it's built to span that far, right? And they're called TJIs. They have LVLs, TJIs, we can get into all that later. But so what they'll do is they'll provide this, what they call is the engineered wood package, and that provides you all of the documentation that you need. It may be that you're building this house with trusses, and trusses for your roof system are different than what they call stick building. Stick building is where you'll take 2x12s or 2x10s or generally something a little bit smaller than that, 2x8s or 2x10s, and build your rafters, right? These are the pieces of wood that come together and make your A-frame for your roof, right? They can design what they call trusses, and trusses are built in such a way that it puts less load on the interior walls of the house and more to the exterior walls. I'm sorry if I'm getting too technical, but I just want to kind of give you an idea of what they do when you send your construction plans to the lumber company. They engineer this house in such a way that they can provide you these engineered wood packages. You have to take that documentation from them along with your construction plans and your site plan and provide all of that to the city in a nice, neat little package for you to be able to start the process of getting a building permit, right? So now...
Drawings.
Right.
We'll keep that in a box for the drawings. Is that all right, y'all? We ain't lost you too much, y'all. Fall asleep now. Wake it on up. We got a few more minutes here.
It's a lot to it, so I don't want to get too technical.
It's exciting to me, though. Isn't it exciting, y'all? I think this is, but the drawings, well, for me, Julius, when I did it, it took me 90 days to get all these drawings. And I'm listening to you. You have these relationships. Mm-hmm. What can a new investor expect?
Well, I mean, again, it's difficult, because you should expect that you can get a set of drawings fairly quickly. But if you just call an architect out of the phone book, of course that could take weeks or months to figure out how to navigate through that with them. They don't know you, you don't know them, they don't know what type of house you want. They're going to take you through all of this rigmarole because they know that you're a new client. Their rates might be a little bit hiked up because they know that you're not a repeat customer. I'm not going to pay the same amount of money as you would for a set of plans, right? You want to, again, I like to go back to utilizing the resources that you have. If there's somebody that's not in this room right now and I don't have the opportunity to share my resources with them, then that's an unfortunate situation. But you all in here do. You have the opportunity to call me and say, hey man, I need an architect. I'll put you in touch with them and get you a set of plans, and you can tell them that you know me. So that'll help you in a big way. Same thing with this surveyor and whoever else. But yeah,
these guys, I just want y'all to know that these people ain't sitting around waiting for you to ask them to do plans, right? They're just not there. Yeah. They might be waiting for him. Yeah. But what I called them to do was like, it's gonna take 30 days for me even to come to your house. Like, so this stuff, that's why I admire you for doing scheduling. Time's almost up. Julius, we got Q&A. Please get your questions.
Yeah.
We got our drawings, we submitted to the city. I want to talk about interfacing with the city, because this is not just give you the plan and they're like, okay, we'll talk about that. And then picking a builder for investors that want to pick a builder. Let's start with interfacing with the city, and then we'll end it up with picking a builder.
Sure. Okay, well, the city, like Kris says, it's really difficult in a way to navigate through the city because I'll use Norfolk as an example because Norfolk right now, they're still operating under the COVID era, and they're not actually in the office.
Oh my gosh.
So it's not like you can just walk in there and, like you used to be able to, bring your plans in, fill out your application, and wait to talk to somebody that's reviewing the plans and all that kind of stuff. Now, it's a whole different process. You have to, submit all your stuff electronically, and you don't know who's getting it. There's somebody that's at home in front of their television chasing their kids around the house that doesn't have time to look at your paperwork for the next 2 weeks. So again, this is where those relationships come into play. Because I've built these relationships with these people over the years, I know all of them, and I have their cell phone numbers, and I can call them and say, hey, like what's going on with my plans? I can still jump up and down on somebody's desk, right?
That's cool, man.
That's amazing. For people that don't have that option, if you just started today, first of all, you have to navigate the website to even figure out the documentation that you need to fill out to submit. That's going to take you 2 weeks. And then once you get
a monster.
Yeah, then once you actually get the documentation and you navigate through that and fill it out, and
if it's right.
Yeah, if it's right, because again, you're going to submit all that stuff, and then they're going to kick back 2 weeks later and say, hey, well, you didn't cross your T here, didn't dot your I here, and
then you got 2 weeks.
Yeah, and then you got to go back through the system again for re-review. So it could take a long time, if you don't have certain things in place. Like just say for instance, like for me, just to touch on plans again, my architect, he has building plans that he has submitted to the city as a model, right? So that means that those plans have already been submitted, reviewed, and the city has approved them. So now all I have to do is call them and say, listen, I want to utilize model Ella 2005, and that plan has already been reviewed. So I don't have to wait 5 weeks for them to review those plans. They've already reviewed them. That's an option that I have, and he may have 10 different models down at the city. So all I have to do is call him, get an authorization letter from him, say, hey man, I want to use whatever model, and he gives me an authorization letter, and I submit that to the city. So that's a huge plus for me, But talking about somebody just going in from start to finish and never had, it's tough. It's a lengthy process, and especially again like in Norfolk where you can't go down and talk to somebody. Now, fortunately, the other cities, the other municipalities are open, like Chesapeake. You can go down there and talk to those guys. Suffolk, all the rest of them are operating normally now, except for Norfolk. So fortunately, you have that option if you're in Portsmouth or Suffolk or wherever else you might want to build a house. It could be a little bit easier because you can talk to people and go down and talk.
So we're interfacing with the city. So you just said so much regarding going back and forth. Would you say if they're a new builder, should they work with a builder that already has a plan, Jay, or should they go out there and, I'm going to say should, what would you recommend would be the fastest way to get rolling?
I would recommend you don't go it alone. Don't go it alone. Find a builder, and find, and that's not an easy thing either, right? Because, unfortunately, there's always this stigma behind contractors and, they don't work above board and they do all these underhanded things and this and that. But those are the things that you have to kind of weed through, right? I suffered a lot when I first started out in this business years ago, not by way so much of the contractors in a different way, but either way, it can hurt you, and it can stifle your growth in this thing. One thing to look out for, and I tell people this all the time, because I get calls about this all the time. People call me and say, hey, man, look, man, I need you to come help me out, man. I hired this contractor. I gave him 30 grand and I ain't seen him in 2 months. Now I got to come in behind this guy clean it up. And now I'm getting looked at with a side eye because they're like, can I trust this guy? They already lost 30 grand, so now they want me to do it for like the most reduced price ever, you know what I'm saying? And, and I want to help people, but at the same time, this is a for-profit business. I have to make money, So, finding a contractor is very important. Somebody that you can trust and somebody that, bank, you need to operate like a bank. A bank doesn't give you money for work that you haven't done yet. They just don't. They pay you on work that's been completed, right? So if a contractor's coming to you and saying, I need 50 grand up front, well, you got to consider that. What is that for? You know what I'm saying? What am I giving you $50,000 for? Like, you haven't even gotten a building permit yet. Like, so you have to understand that if it just doesn't make sense and it doesn't feel right, don't do it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, because you're never going to see that 50 grand. I promise you. I've seen it too many times. So, consider who you're dealing with. Find a contractor that you can ask questions to that, offers some transparency. A lot of times when people are trying to keep things from you and say, oh, well, nah, you don't need to worry about that. No, yeah, I do, man. This is a major investment. Like, I need to worry about every bit of it. Don't let people brush you off from that kind of stuff. And if you get that sense from them, then 9 times out of 10, they're hiding something from you. You know what I'm saying? So like with us, we work with, I have a lot of different investment partners. In a lot of cases, what we'll do is, if we're working together on a project, now you don't necessarily have to hand me a check. Just we're getting ready to start the foundation, pay for the materials. It's not going to cost you anything. You got to get the block material to build a foundation regardless. If I do it or whoever's doing it, right? Pay for the materials, get the materials delivered to the job, let me perform the work. Get the foundation built, get an inspection, then you pay for the labor.
That's a good way.
Right?
Yeah, I got that.
We need lumber. Now we're ready to start framing the house. Pay for the lumber package. All right, get the lumber package out there. If I walk away from the job the next day, you didn't lose anything. You still had to pay for the lumber anyway, right? Hire some framers, get them out there and frame it up, or another contractor, whatever you got to do. But you didn't lose. You didn't give me $20,000 for work that I didn't do, right? We frame it up. We get a sheathing inspection. Work is completed. Now you pay me.
Good. Yeah, I got that.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's the way it should work. In that scenario. So it's important, to not let the money get ahead of the work. It should never happen. Don't let the money get ahead of the work.